I've got a whole bunch of places in here I want to look at. We probably won't get to them all tonight. But we could start at John 2, that's fine. So, let's pray. Father, we ask your blessing on your word. We ask you to be with those who aren't here with us this evening. And ask that you will help us to teach correctly and learn what you would have us to learn. We hope that our technological endeavors will go well and people can hear this and future messages on the internet. We ask your blessing on the new camera system that we want to set up soon. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So we do have a new 2-camera system coming in, and for those of you that can see me out there, I'm still on my laptop tonight. That might change by next week, I hope.
Maybe.
Because we're going to have a good 2-camera system, and it will be set up in here permanently.
Does that mean we're going to have to start having it out there again?
Yeah, we'll be over there because the cameras won't move in here. So. You can take your chair with you if you want. Where am I? John chapter 2.
Yeah, there's a wedding.
John records this event. The other 3 Gospels do not. It is known as the first of Jesus' public miracles. It doesn't mean that it's the first time he ever did anything miraculous, because obviously his mother was there and she's the one that directed him to ask Jesus. So she's already seen something unusual about Jesus. And nevertheless, this is the first one that we have an official record of. There are some extra biblical sources that have some kind of strange stories about Jesus as a child doing things, but we'll take this as the first official one. John chapter 2. Somebody want to read verses 1 to 7?
On the 3rd day there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim.
Okay. Has any of you ever talked to your mother like that? Woman, what's that got to do with me? So for most people,
be here if I had.
would be,
You know,
and the next day when I woke up in the hospital.
Yes, yeah.
I'd be still looking for my head.
Yeah.
She's been gone for 21 years.
I don't think he said woman in a bad way there. That just comes off kind of inappropriate in English. But note that Jesus at this point is 30 years old and independent, and his mother is a woman, so that's what he called her. Not in a mean way. He's just being practical here.
Well, once he began, he didn't really treat his mother any different than anybody else, did he?
No,
Until
there's
he
things
was on the
that
cross.
there's things that your mother can do with you when you're 9 years old and living under her roof that she shouldn't still be doing when you're at this age.
I'm 62 years old, and if I called my mother mother
Or woman.
or woman, yeah.
You'd find out if she had anything to swing at you.
Yes, absolutely.
She's just smacking. You wouldn't need anything.
Well, at this point in his life, she should not be going and treating him like a little kid anymore
True.
and ordering him around. It's not like Jesus is going to be the guy living in mommy's basement.
Well, she didn't really order them around. She just said they have no wine.
But why, when somebody else runs out of wine and it's somebody else's wedding, why does she go to her son and say they have no wine like he's going to do something about it? There's a lot more to this than just the words, you know? That there's meanings behind what she's doing here.
Were they somehow related to her?
It doesn't say that
We
at
don't
all.
know who they were.
But this is kind of the backwoods of Galilee. Tiny little town. Everybody knows everybody. Most of them are related in some way or another. And they got invitations. So if you got invitation, you're a relative or a distant relative or a very close friend. So Jesus grew up here, and I suspect that this is not the first of his miracles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This didn't just come out of thin air. Poof, all of a sudden he's doing
Because
strange things.
when he was a child, didn't he bring a bird back to life?
Yeah, that's the extra biblical story. There's a lot of questions about that. That, yeah, some people say that,
So that's not biblical. That's
no.
Where'd that come from? I've never heard it.
That's not even
I have.
remotely biblical.
But I didn't know
But-
where it was. Is that like a Maccabee name or something?
No, the Maccabees are semi-biblical. They are in certain Bibles, but not considered equal to the rest of the canon. But anyway, Maccabees are a couple of hundred years before Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Now, these are some of these strange gospels off to the side, you know.
Oh, the gospel that didn't make it into the Bible.
The things that weren't actually written by the people they say they were written by,
Uh-huh.
and they weren't even written in the first century.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, they're kind of frowned upon. But we don't know if they got those stories for those gospels from some other source that might have been closer. So, whether the whole bird thing is true or not, I suspect that he must have done some other things that were unusual.
I'm sure it was helpful.
He maybe healed his brother's son, but
And he always likes birds, so that could be true. Because he
Mhm.
talks about them a lot.
Yeah. But when the wine runs out,
Mm-hmm.
we can tell that Mary is pretty close to the family, one of these families that's getting married, because she's right back there in the kitchen and she knows about it.
Yep.
And as soon as she knows about it, she comes out to her son.
Well, maybe she was thirsty and went back to get some more wine. And she's like, "There's no more wine. Make me some wine."
And then she
You
came
ain't that
staggering out looking for
Staggering
Jesus.
out. Hey, Jesus, give me some wine.
Some people will not like Mother Mary referred to in that way.
I don't.
He's trying to be a comedian.
She obviously said this to Jesus in a way that had expectation. Like, they have no wine, so, hello, you're my son, I'm telling you to do something about it. But Jesus
Back
is
then,
not having
wine
that.
wasn't alcoholic, was it? It was more of a grape juice.
Oh, no, it was
Mm,
fermented.
When they say
Was
wine,
it
they mean
fermented?
wine.
But don't you think these people are, like, either they're good friends or they're family members, because you don't just invite all of your disciples to come with you to a wedding when you're the one invited. And he invited all of his disciples.
Mhm. Yeah. Notice though who his disciples were. Um, where did they come from?
Galilee.
Yeah, a lot of them are Galileans too. So they're probably acquainted with these people.
Oh, so they knew him too.
In
So
fact,
that's why
the-
they got
The
invited.
first
They were
ones
all
were
invited.
fishermen. A lot of fishermen in that bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So they're from Galilee, and if you're going to invite Jesus and his mom because they're close, and you're going to invite some of Jesus' disciples, you can't just leave out the other ones, right? That'd be kind of rude. You guys hang out under a
Yeah.
tree over there. You can't come to the wedding. Weddings are festive events, and the more the merrier. So it's better to err on the side of too many rather than too few.
Must be from Jerry. You only did one.
What? Well, because he's
Jerry.
loud enough for.
Yeah.
He killed that kid.
Huh.
He was hilarious.
Mhm.
I know we're off subject.
All right. So yeah, people out there on the internet are going, wait, who's Jerry?
Yeah.
So she came to Jesus and said something that had undertones of expectation on it.
Right.
What are you going to do about this? And Jesus rejects this on every level. What do you think would Jesus' problem be with this?
Well, his Father in heaven hadn't told him to begin his public ministry yet. So,
Yep. He says, my hour has not yet come. If I start doing this publicly and everybody sees it, and my disciples see it, and it gets recorded, and it gets spread all over the countryside, that leads me down a path which ends at the cross. So,
Slow your roll.
mhm. When he says, my hour has not yet come, she's thinking your hour to be revealed as a special person, and he's thinking my hour to die.
Right.
So he's,
I was thinking the same thing as her.
what?
His hour to be revealed as a special person.
Yeah.
How do you
Once-
know they're
once
talking
you're
about his
revealed-
hour to die?
well, because there's a
This world is
She's
relentless,
not asking
okay?
him to die. She's asking him to do a miracle.
Once somebody is
Which
revealed and they
leads
become a
to-
public figure, the world pushes you down a path.
Oh,
Jesus knows what that path will take him to. And Mary should know too, because what was she told by the prophet when they took him to Jerusalem? The seer looked at Jesus and knew who he was, and then he looked at Mary and he said, a sword will pierce your soul, your heart also. You're going to have to bury your son before you die. That's something that no parent should want to have to go through. So, she should have known from what had been told to her up until this point that her son is destined to suffer, and she would be there to see the suffering. That's part of the prophecy that's been given to her.
It wasn't the embalming fluid they gave him. That's what myrrh was, right?
And that's a pretty good indication too. So his mother tries to push him into doing something. He pushes back, and then what does she do?
he went away.
She turns to the servants.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like she took the hint from Jesus, did she?
Well,
See, what does that have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. This is something I don't really want to do right now. And she said, whatever he says to you, do it.
but didn't that give him an option of doing it or not doing it?
Jesus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did kind of leave it open a little bit.
Well, you know how mothers are, though.
Yeah.
Whatever he says to you, do it. What are the servants' names?
What are the servants' names? They don't tell me.
The servants in the story have no name at all.
Mm-mm.
Who does the work in this story?
The servants.
The servants. From this point on, Jesus doesn't lift a finger. His mother says, do whatever he tells you to do,
Mhm.
and he says, go and fill this stuff up. They're the ones running back and forth with pitchers and stuff,
Uh-huh.
filling these great big water jars. 6 water pots of stone,
Holding 20 or 30 gallons of peace.
6 times 30 gallons is how much?
180.
So if you got to run down to the creek and get some clean water and bring it back with a pitcher, how many trips are you going to make with pitchers?
180.
I hope there was
A
about
whole
6 of them.
I hope there was a bunch of servants. Yeah. So they're working on this for quite some time. There's no indication that Jesus did a thing,
Right.
but they have no names.
Right.
This story doesn't go anywhere without the servants.
Right.
So let's go ahead and read verse 8 down to 11.
Before we do that, can I ask one question?
Mhm.
I have to do whatever he tells you, and then beside it I've written Mary's last recorded words.
Mhm.
Was that important for some reason that I actually wrote that in there?
I don't know
Okay.
her last words, but she's been present through other things.
You just kept her mouth shut.
Well, her last recorded words, too. She, you know.
We know that she was at the cross, and in between this time and the cross, she was also at one of his public appearances. She brought his brothers, and they were outside trying to get him to come away with them quietly.
Well, I just wondered if it had something to do with the fact that this time when she said something, she may have felt that she had overstepped her bounds. So after that, she didn't.
Well, she still had stuff to say after that, it's just not recorded. So, if anything, she overstepped her bounds when she was trying to get him to step away from the public ministry and be put away quietly somewhere. That was a little bit over the top, even for an overbearing mother. How old do you think Mary is at this point?
Well, if he's in his
I was
30s, she's
45,
probably...
maybe.
Yeah, if he's 30, she's around 45.
Mhm.
So she's not that old. She was quite young when he was born.
Mhm. 15.
Well, she was still virgin.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we can't.
Okay.
Okay, big George, I think we have questions.
All right, verses 8 to 11.
We'll
You're going to read it.
Sure.
And he said to them, draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast. And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called to the bridegroom, and he said to him, every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine until now. Through 11.
Mm-hmm.
This beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
Now, his disciples sensed something great in him, but this is the point where it says they believed in him.
Right.
Does God need to prove himself to us?
No.
Not really. But when he does, when he chooses to reveal himself to us, he can use servants. Servants who are nameless, for all time they will remain nameless, right?
Yeah.
Unless you ask after them in heaven, try and find out who they were. Yet these
That might
guys,
take you a day or two.
they were the instruments of revealing Jesus
Right.
for the first time. Go look at Matthew 23 real quickly.
Oops. Did them all.
Matthew 23.
Okay. There's a lot of rules.
Yeah. Matthew 23, start looking at verse 5 to 12. Jeremy?
Mikey?
Yeah. Matthew 23, 5 to 12.
But they do all their deeds to be noticed by men, for they broaden their phylacteries and lengthen the tassels of their garments. They love the place of honor at banquets and the chief seats in the synagogues and respectful greetings in the marketplaces and being called rabbi by men. But do not be called rabbi, for one is your teacher, and you are all brothers. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your Father, he who is in heaven. Do not be called leaders, for one is your leader, that is Christ. But the greatest among you shall be your servant. Whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted.
Okay. The person who is greatest among you will be the servant. Last shall be first, and the first shall be last, right? And if you try to exalt yourself, you'll be humbled. And vice versa. So this gives a good indication of what a servant is, right?
Okay.
How would you describe servant?
Well, they don't show off.
They just get the job done.
They don't try to make themselves look better than everybody else.
They have work to do. They get a job done. And they do it without drawing attention or showing off.
Without anything.
If you are a servant and somebody is directing you and telling you to do this and do that, and it comes to a very good fulfillment and a good work is done, who gets the honor for it?
The boss.
The boss man, the guy that told you how to do it, right?
I
So,
told you too, didn't I?
mhm. Let's see. Look over at Luke chapter 17. There's a really good description of servant that I like there.
17, you said?
Luke 17, towards the beginning of it, around verses 7 to 9.
Oh, unworthy servants, which were them?
Let's see, where do we want to start?
7 through 10.
One's faith and duty.
I'm so surprised teachers concerning stumbling blocks.
Well,
Mine says unworthy servants.
mostly, let's just read 7 to 10.
Or which of you, having a slave plowing or tending sheep, will say to him when he has come in from the field, "Come immediately and sit down to eat"? But will he not say to him, Prepare something for me to eat, and properly clothe yourself, and serve me until I have eaten and drunk, and after you will eat and drink? He does not thank the slave because he did the things which were commanded, does he? So you too, when you do all the things which are commanded you, say, We are unworthy slaves. We have done only that which we ought to have done.
You ever hear this taught on a Sunday morning?
Mm.
That's a really good passage to teach on.
Mine just says instructions.
This is instruction.
I just don't hear too many people preaching on this one. But I like this one, the way it has a really good explanation of servanthood.
I think the next time you preach, you should preach on it.
Yeah, maybe. So the servant not only has a job to do and doesn't have a name still. The servant here is not named. And he is humble, but the servant's work, if it is done well, it is simply expected.
Mm-hmm.
So if you come in and you've done a good job, working hard all day, does the master say, come in, have a seat, and I'll take care of you?
Nope.
Let me bring you some food. No. Your service is not done. You still have to prepare something for the master to eat first.
So you have to do it all.
Now remember, this Jesus is talking to them about being servants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when he says servant, he's talking to you guys. And when he says master, he means God, right? Look at verse 9. If you do the things that were commanded, will God thank you because you did it?
Nope.
No, it's expected.
No.
Because
Well, that's kind of harsh.
He's a good father. The father teaches you how to do things and what needs to be done, and then he just expects it. He don't thank you every time.
And then he empowers you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So your work goes to his glory.
Right.
And thanks should not go to you.
Yeah.
He should expect the work from you, and you should not expect thanks or reward from him.
No, we should be thanking him for letting us do
They're
some
letting
work
us
for
do
him.
it, yeah.
Exactly.
So if a lot of people read this in the way it's intended, it's going to rub them the wrong way, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute, God isn't grateful to me for all the work I've done my whole life? Doing all this stuff for him in his church?
It was our duty. And you know, like when you're a little kid, your dad always mows the lawn. And then you, let me mow. No, you're not big enough, not mature enough. But then when you do get big enough, mature enough, he goes, you can mow the lawn. Well, the first few times you thank him, and after that it becomes a chore. But it shouldn't. And it's the same way when you're doing things for God. You know, as you mature, he expects, you should just do more.
Yep. Taking over the job that he empowers you to do should be expected. And hopefully
Should
you
be
can
an
do it without
honor.
chopping off your foot.
Yeah. Bless you.
It should be an honor.
Okay. Let's look at, we've got about 15 minutes. I'm gonna skip to the beginning of Luke 1. Here is a couple of places where a servant is named.
Yeah. Only 40 minutes late.
Well, we ought to make him pray at the end then.
Yes.
Yay! You better have to sit down, it's your turn to read.
Yeah.
Luke 1. When you get there,
Luke 1 what, Chad?
see? See them? See that?
Is that one?
She's like,
We're going to look
Why
a
do you
little
have
bit
to
at the
wear
Song of
those?
Mary.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dog tags?
yep.
Okay. Yeah, I wear mine all the time. Blood type.
Yep.
Luke chapter 1 records the Song of Mary. This is after she visited Elizabeth and right before she gets a prophecy. So look at Luke 1.
26?
What? 26?
26.
I don't think so.
26 you
Christ's
read.
birth announced to Mary.
26 is
In the 6th month.
Well, then you got Mary down here. Jesus, servant of the Lord.
You're talking about 46?
We don't know.
well, okay, at 38 you do have that word.
38.
If you're looking at 38, the way she ended that meeting with the angel, she said, I am the maidservant of the Lord, let it be to me according to your word. So
Luke 1:38.
Mary calls herself a servant. But now look at the Song of Mary. It's just a little ways down here. Let's read from verse 51. Let's see. Well, I don't want to make you read that far. Let's just do from 51 to 55.
You want me to read?
Yep.
He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from the thrones, that has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers.
Okay.
Mm.
So here a servant is named. What is the name here?
Israel.
The servant Israel. Okay. And now down to Zacharias making a prophecy. It starts in verse 68.
68 to what?
To 68 to 70.
Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he has visited and redeemed people, and has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he spoke by the mouth of his holy prophets from of old.
Okay. And down to Luke chapter 2, verse 29.
Luke. Jesus.
Luke 2:29.
Is that my turn?
Yes.
Okay. Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace, according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation. How far?
That's enough. If you look up a little bit to verse 25, you'll see the name of that guy.
Amen.
Simeon.
Simeon. Okay, so here in the first couple of chapters of Luke, we have 4 servants who are named, right?
Yeah.
Mary,
Simeon,
Simeon,
and David.
Israel, and David. 4 named servants. What do all those guys have in common? Other than the named servant.
They're all linked to Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're all more, I mean, they're not people that just looking at them, you would think of them as servants. They have position, but they were in position when serving the Lord. Does that make sense?
Well,
They were people of stature and status.
no, they're all over the page.
Are they?
Yep. You got
Simeon's in the temple.
David is a king,
Yeah.
right? Simeon is a prophet, right, in the temple.
Yeah.
And Jacob, or Israel,
Thank you.
he's a patriarch
Yeah.
Right.
of all of the chosen people.
Right.
And Mary's
And-
his mother.
Mary, just a little girl, nobody,
Yeah.
a teenage girl from a
This
very
is true,
poor
but
town.
in the family situation, she is his mother. That should have gave her,
Well, not yet.
well, you know.
She's an unmarried young girl living
Yeah.
in her parents' house
Yeah.
when she says this. I am your maidservant, right?
Yeah.
She was engaged at the time, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So you have everybody
Two
from,
Joseph, yes.
and Mary is like the most common name of all back in those days.
Still pretty common.
If we can judge from the sarcophagi that are in the graveyards from that time, 1 out of every 4 women was named Mary.
Really?
It was that common.
Wow.
Well, she was common.
Yeah. So a very common nobody with a nothing name and up to a king.
Right.
Okay. These guys are all over the page. Men and women, but they all lay claim to this title of servant. And who are they serving?
God.
Yeah. Simeon says, Lord, let your servant depart in peace, right? So he's talking to God. I am your servant. Mary was speaking to an angel, but she was saying, I am the Lord's servant.
Mm-hmm.
They serve God, and his purpose for them to do was doing what? All of them have one thing in common. They're doing something to bring the
Serve God.
Messiah into the world. That's God's purpose. David was the promised ancestor, right? Because the Messiah was going to be a branch from the root of Jesse and the heir of David. Jacob was the patriarch of the chosen people who were the vessel to bring the Messiah into the world. Simeon was the prophet that would announce, to his parents that, yeah, this is the one. You guys brought the Messiah. Here he is. And Mary herself was the chosen vessel to give birth to him. And all of them, yep, I'm the Lord's servant. Let my work be for your purpose. So after all of these people did all this to bring the Messiah into the world, who gets the glory for it?
God.
God does, because he told them what to do, and they're just doing what they're told.
And then she Catholic.
So what do you think? And when the Messiah actually starts his public ministry, the very first thing that he does through servants. They do all the work. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Gallon pictures, little gallon pictures. Filling up 180 gallons of stuff.
We have 2 5-gallon buckets and a yoke.
Those guys were tired by the time they got done with that. But the master of the feast was glad because he got 180 gallons of the highest quality wine, right?
Yeah. For free.
Well, it's for a lot of work.
Not for him.
I don't know how far they had to go to get that water. But I think it took him a while. And all Jesus does is say, do this. And who gets the glory for it? Jesus.
He just turned on the faucet.
This is in the nature of servants. So, are you a servant?
We're servants, but
I'll have
we're not
to,
worthy to be put up there with them.
No.
I'd have to do something worthy to have my name
I
there.
would never
Well-
be worthy to be put up there with
I'd be
them.
one of them carrying water. The no name.
I was plainly told that I
And we have
have
the
2
unnamed
hands.
ones.
I once was complaining to God I had no gifts with which to serve, and he informed me I had 2 hands.
2 hands?
Mm-hmm.
Did
He
you
did?
just make that up?
No, it's been a while now, but no.
Okay.
So you're not just saying something someone else said, you're saying it for yourself, for real.
That's what I said.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, you could have been quoting someone, that's why I was asking.
She just wanted to make sure she was understanding properly.
Yeah.
All right, we have just a couple more minutes, so I want to end this on a dark note for you. How about that?
That's
Oh, happy,
knowledge.
very good.
Hey, Halloween's coming, right?
Oh dear.
Hey, we've spent 7 months now wearing masks and eating candy. So
Yeah.
why do we need a day dedicated
That's
to that?
right. Just do it all the 24/7, 365.
I wasn't eating candy until those people started putting it out at work.
All right, it's their fault.
It is their fault.
Let's finish with Luke chapter 12.
Did better that week.
I got a bunch more. I think we'll do a little bit more about servants next week. But
Okey-dokey.
but we're gonna
Luke 12, what?
Luke chapter 12, 46 and 47.
46 and 47.
Wait, we got to back up a little bit.
Yeah. Go back at
Um,
42.
Okay, start at 42 and go to 47.
Jeremy's turn.
My turn.
Yep.
And the Lord said, "Who then is the faithful and sensible steward whom his master will put in charge of his servants to give them their rations at the proper time? Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you that he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But if that slave says in his heart, my master will be a long time in coming, and begins to beat the slaves, both men and women, and to eat and drink and get drunk, the master of that slave will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. And that slave who knew his master's will and did not get ready or act in accord with his will receive many lashes."
Okay, pretty dark, huh? This is the other side of the coin. Remember, if you're a servant, then what he tells you to do, you're expected to do, and he is not expected to thank you for it. However, if you don't do it,
You're going to get a whooping.
He's going to cut you in two. Remember, the servant is us, and God is the master, right? If he comes and finds us not doing what we're supposed to do, he cut us in two.
He is.
Did you know that was in the Bible?
No.
Oh.
No, I didn't.
He's going to give us a severe beating.
In verse 47 it says, if you know what his will is, and you don't prepare yourself or do it, you will be beaten with many stripes or many lashes. And then 48, if you didn't know, and so you didn't do the right thing, then you'll be beaten with few stripes. Still gonna get beaten, but not as bad as the guy who knew what he was supposed to do.
Mine
Then
says
got
a
cut in
severe
pieces.
beating.
Will that beating occur here on earth, or is it, am I waiting for the beating to come?
Is it right outside the pearly gates?
Will it be in private or
Probably public.
I don't know. He doesn't give it too much context here. But there is a
There's enough
very
to make
strong
you wanna
implied
not
threat.
Figure out which he does.
It's enough to make you behave so you don't need it at all.
We have mention of crowns. There are rewards for people who do God's will on this earth. But this is one of the very, very few places where we have mention of punishment. If you know what you're supposed to be doing and you don't do it, you get beaten a lot. If you don't do it because you didn't even know what you're supposed to do, you get beaten a little. And that's interesting. So it would behoove us, number one, to know what we're supposed to do, right? How do you know God's will for your life?
Listen.
You read your book,
You read the Bible, you listen, right?
you pray.
You don't neglect gathering together to worship because that's where you get a lot of information, right?
Right.
If you do this, then you will know, at least in a general sense, what you're supposed to be doing.
And you won't get cut in half.
Not if you do it. Number one, you got to know what it is, and
Yes.
number two, you got to do it. But I don't like that. And when he comes and surprises you at a day unlooked for, he's going to chop you in half.
That's probably where
Then he'll have two unworthy
the
servants.
beheading comes from.
So that's
Their
the dark.
misinterpretation.
That's a good Halloween verse to leave you with, I guess.
Hey,
Anybody tells you that Christians shouldn't be celebrating Halloween and have skeletons on their porch or things like that, tell them, have you read Luke chapter 12?
Yes. Mm.
We could have a body cut in half on our porch and just tell people that's from the
It's
Bible.
in the Bible.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Halloween a Catholic holiday?
Well, it's an old holiday.
It's very old holiday.
So
It was originally
I'm going to shut this off and we'll go to prayer
scare
time.
away.
We'll do a little bit more on servants for next week.
All Hallows Eve.
I want to look at Luke chapter 7 next week,
Ooh,
and Luke 16, and Acts 16. I got a bunch of things to look at next week that talk about servants.